I'm sorry, I know it's a cartoon, but I just can't laugh at this. To me personally, it's just uncomfortable. It's not funny, it's not cute, it's just stupid and uncomfortable.
For both Strider and I, revisiting Classic Spongebob has been an interesting endeavor. I'm sure we all have very fond memories of watching this show a ton when we were young, and it's easy to see why. It was a show that really understood its audience. It knew how to entertain, while simultaneously make its audience think and learn. But rewatching the show, as well as some reviews by Phantom Strider, got me thinking, was it all sunshine and rainbows? Or are we just blinded by nostalgia? The reason I bring this up is because revisiting many episodes from this era for Koen's Corner, I came to the realization that not everything that show had to offer was as great as I remembered them being. Many of such episodes I remember watching a ton when I was young, but not very many of which I can come back to with the same level of enjoyment. So why do episodes like Survival of the Idiots, an episode that one could argue is one of the more uncomfortable ones from the classic era, get as much praise as they do today? Is this really as good as many of us remember it being? Was the story actually that enjoyable? Was the humor really that funny? Or are we all just nostalgic for it, remembering the time we first got to see it and the memories we associate with it? Survival of the Idiots revolves around SpongeBob and Patrick trespassing Sandy's private property so they can have a bit of fun in the snow, as well as teasing Sandy while she's sleeping, after being told not to bother her.
That means you, SpongeBob.
Now this should go without saying, but trespassing is not exactly appreciated by most sensible people. But if you know the show, you already know SpongeBob and Patrick are not most people. So sure enough, they completely ignore Sandy's warnings and proceed to play in the snow, from which a lot of hilarity ensues.
Hey, that's not fair! Cowboys couldn't afford cannons.
They couldn't afford station wagons either.
I will admit, I'm a little torn on this plot. While I always love watching SpongeBob and Patrick's wild antics, trespassing is one of those lines no one should ever be crossing, regardless of their intentions. Now I will give credit where credit is due. SpongeBob does understand that Sandy does not want to be disturbed from hibernation.
Sandy said not to come in. Let them scrape.
But of course, because Patrick is around who doesn't really give that much of a crap about any of that, and because he's a frankly bad influence on SpongeBob, the two of them just walk in anyway and proceed to wreak havoc at every step of the way. Now, one of the reasons why I personally find this particularly uncomfortable is that we are talking about two boys trespassing private property after getting direct instructions not to do so. I don't know about you, but I found something very uncomforting about the idea of someone trespassing private property, especially when you're completely unaware of that happening for whatever reason. Maybe you're just not at home, maybe you're asleep like Sandy is here, or maybe there's something else going on. Because the thing is, you never know what exactly your trespasser was up to when they were in your property. Sometimes something gets stolen from your home. Other times you might find a dead body there. Or maybe something else very scary could happen. It's a genuinely scary thought. Seeing SpongeBob and Patrick act so casual about this, while I'm sure it is supposed to be endearing, just ends up being uncomfortable at best and infuriating at worst. Because they simply do not have any regard for Sandy's privacy here. Not helped by Sandy being in probably the most vulnerable position someone could be in. You know, because she's hibernating and therefore in a very deep sleep. I will say though, there is something deeply satisfying about Sandy beating the ever-living hell out of them as they continue to wreak havoc. And they do get what they deserve in the end, where Sandy would wear them like a piece of clothing. Presumably after getting one last very good, well-deserved beating. It's a very satisfying sequence of events that occurs every few minutes of the episode. It only gets more and more violent with every passing moment, making for some of the most amazing slapstick that the show has ever seen. With all of that in mind, I don't just want to simply trash this episode simply because it makes me uncomfortable over its subject matter. It's probably obvious by now, but there is a fair bit that I like about it. Mainly every scene to do with Sandy beating the boys to shit. And I also think there is a very good message here. Not to go trespassing someone's property. Definitely an important lesson for kids to learn. But overall, the episode just is not great. Being severely bogged down by SpongeBob and Patrick bothering Sandy for virtually no reason other than she's asleep and apparently they think that she is an easy target or something like that? I don't really know. I think it would have been much better had SpongeBob and Patrick just played in the snow rather than disturbing Sandy with their antics. It still would not have made for a fantastic episode, but it would have at the very least made me feel a little bit better about this whole situation. So why does this, as well as most episodes from this classic era, still receive the amount of praise that it does today? Well, I think there is a very simple yet very understandable explanation for the amount of positive reviews that it receives, which can be described with one single word: nostalgia. SpongeBob SquarePants made his debut in the late 90s. Today, we live in 2026. Most kids who used to watch SpongeBob have long since grown up, many of whom have a certain desire, so to say. As much of a cliche as it is for me to say at this point, it bears repeating. Being alive is hard. The older you get, the more responsibilities you take on, and the harder life becomes. And this is especially true for the 2000s, when the world in general was a very different place fundamentally. Technology hadn't taken over our entire lives yet. Kids would go outside and play pretend with their friends. Families would actually spend some good quality time with each other, playing board games or having fun moving nights or something like that. In the year of 2026, however, a lot is just different. The kids who could previously just simply worry about being happy and play with their classmates now have adult responsibilities to worry about. Go to work, pay the bills, maintain their properties, etc. The life of an adult is filled with challenges that kids just simply don't have to worry about. So much so that it gets incredibly stressful for many of us. For this reason, it is not uncommon for adults like myself wishing to go back in time. To go back to a time when things were just a bit simpler, and where we didn't have to worry about so much garbage. Often finding themselves reminiscing those old memories from when they were a kid, and even coming back to that one cartoon they used to watch all the time, or that one game that they always came back to on that console they used to play, or even go back to locations they always visited growing up, or even that town they used to live in. Why am I bringing this up? Well, all of this is extremely important to understand where the praise for Survival of the Idiots and other episodes like it come from. Reviewers and audiences are not remembering this episode for being a genuinely good one. They are remembering the stories surrounding them. They're remembering how simple their life was when they were younger. They're remembering SpongeBob and Patrick's funny antics. They didn't care if they were trespassing Sandy's property or the stupidity of the situation. They were just laughing at the slapstick and the insanity that was happening right in front of them.
I'm Dirty Dan.
I say I'm Dirty Dan.
I'm Dirty Dan.
Playing in the snow, beating each other to shit with giant snow weapons, followed by Sandy throwing them in the air. Survival of the Idiots is not a well-praised episode for having a genuinely good story to it or having good jokes. Because the reality is that it just doesn't. It is well praised for what it represents to people. It represents a time when life was just simple. Technology was not front and center in our lives. And kids could just enjoy being kids. And for many, those memories are more important than the story of the episode itself. I would like to expand upon that last statement that I just made, because I feel like I need a moment to get a little more personal. These last few years, I am no different in the sense that I wish we could go back to the much simpler times that were the 2000s. With the world being on fire as much as it is, and my own life having no shortage of very dark moments, and several friends of mine reminding me of the good old days, like we're a bunch of dirty old men. It may sound corny like all fuck for me to be talking about SpongeBob SquarePants in a serious matter like I always do. And truth be told, It probably is. But there's a huge reason why I do. It's because I genuinely see something in this show that I find fascinating and wonderful. It's not just the comedy, the charming characters, or even the messages. It's because it brings me back to a time when I just didn't have nearly as many worries as I do now. There is something endearing in there that is much more interesting and fun to analyze than frankly any of the cartoons we have been seeing in recent years. But you know, I must also acknowledge that no matter how much I want to go back in time, the reality is that it just cannot be done. Life is not gonna go backwards for nostalgia addicts like myself. It will only move forwards, and it's not gonna wait for us until we are finally ready to move on from the past, much to the utter dismay of all of us. Does that mean we should let go of the past entirely? Absolutely not. Indulging into nostalgia is by no means a bad thing, and anyone who says otherwise is, quite frankly, just plain wrong. I think there is something beautiful about being able to still find joy in something you find nostalgic. Whether it's an old edutainment point-and-click game, a cartoon you watched all the time growing up, a movie that you still find relatable, even after all these years. And even SpongeBob episodes like this, which while terribly flawed, still have a charm that only Classic SpongeBob has, and will never be matched.